Porco Rosso.
Hello and welcome to I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse, the podcast all about animated movies not from Disney. I'm your host, Octaviano Macias, and if you're watching this, I probably look like a mess. That's okay. If you're just hearing this, good, you're not seeing me. But anyways, this week we're talking about the Miyazaki film Porco Rosso, which honestly might be his best feature. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know if I've already explained this before. I probably did back when I did Porco. But when it comes to Studio Ghibli, I wouldn't say I dislike their movies. I mean, most of them are really good. But, and I know this is going to be something that probably gets me crucified, I don't consider myself a big fan of Studio Ghibli. Now, again, that's not to say that I hate any of their movies. I think most of them are really good or, just fine. But that's the thing. A lot of them I just think are fine. For a lot of the hype that people give these movies, I'm just like, I mean, it's good. I'm not going to deny that. It's not great. I don't think that these movies are necessarily the best of the best of the best. Some are, some are really good. But the way that some people throw themselves to say, like, oh yeah, each one is a masterpiece, each one is better than pretty much all the competition. No, I mean, if you feel like that, fine. I got nothing against that. If you really enjoy these movies, more power to you. But for me, I mean, yeah, there's some really good ones, but other ones, not as much. I mean, none of them are really all that bad. Like, even the worst ones are, I mean, it's okay. Like, there's a few that are not so good. Like, I know Tales from Earthsea is not very well liked by a lot of people, and most people consider it to be pretty bad. I haven't seen it myself, but, okay, so that one would be a bad one. But, for the most part, I don't think that there's any that are really all that awful. Is my whole point. But Porco Rosso is definitely one where I'm like, yeah, I really get a lot of the charm that people have for it. And it's funny because, in a way, even though it is often recognized as one of Miyazaki's great movies, I don't see it brought up as often for his best. And it's one of my, it's either his best one to me or one of his best, because I know that I really like Princess Mononoke, for example. But, this one's definitely a highlight. And it's, one reason is because one of the problems that I've always had with a lot of these movies is that they often feel too long for what they're offering. Not that necessarily they waste your time, but I've often felt that they're not as good. Like, they don't warrant a lot of their running times, because there's a lot of these that go for like around 2 hours or are already at the 2 hour mark, and I'm like, could have cut some stuff out. And this one runs at a very smooth 90 minutes, and you know what, it really works for the movie. I mean, it's a very simple, very fun story. For those of you who've never seen Porco Rosso pretty much is about the main character, who's a pilot, who is also a pig, hence the name Porco. And he's pretty much, like, it's supposed to be within, like, World War I, World War II times. A lot of it, kind of mirrors, like, the stuff that was going on with, like, the fascist parties and just, like, the whole war. Porco himself is a man who's been cursed to be a pig, and he's pretty much fine with it. I mean, they never full on explain what exactly happened to him, other than he was cursed. I know I've read that in some cases, what's considered to be like the official canon, whatever that means in this scenario, since again it's not really brought up in the movie, is that he's actually the one who cursed himself, because he was pretty much like, look, I'm disappointed in humanity, so I'd rather be any animal, a pig, because apparently Miyazaki has a fascination with pigs, which, whatever. I have a fascination with rats, so not like I can really complain about that, really. So, yeah, he's pretty much a pig. And, where we're picking up in the story, like, it's kind of episodic, but for the most part, it goes from story to story, which is basically like, okay, so he's flying around, he's a bounty hunter, he hunts down pirates for the government, but he pretty much is well aware that, like, my job is just to get them to knock off whatever they're doing. So, you know, if I hurt their planes or whatever, I will let them. I will to let them survive. I'll just retrieve back whatever they stole and maybe let them keep some money and say that it was lost just so they can fix their stuff. And hey, keep my job while they keep their stuff, and it's all good. So you already get a bit of a gray area right there where he is an honorable man or pig, but he also is willing to let some dirty things slide, just because he's like, look, I gotta get paid. He goes to a bar where all these air pirates go to. There's a woman there who, he never really admits to loving her, but she loves him. That's kind of a spoiler, but you figure that out right away, so who cares? And yeah, that's the basic setup. Along the way, we get introduced to an American pilot who plans to be an actor, a president, and all this other stuff. He's in love with the woman that's in that bar. Later on in the movie, Porco gets pretty much screwed over by this American pilot, pretty much losing his plane. So he ends up going to Italy to get it fixed from an old friend, and that's where some of the conflict comes in, because it turns out that he has an arrest warrant in Italy for him. And from there, okay, so we get introduced to a bunch of these characters, of course, the guy who helps him out, and he pretty much has a daughter who pretty much designs the plane, which Porco is not happy about, because he, being a pig, he's kind of sexist. They have a lot of fun with the whole pig thing. The girl who's like a 17-year-old is pretty much they constantly joke about how, oh, Porco, don't go after that girl. And then that girl kind of shows feelings for him. And it's like, okay, this is a little weird given, a bunch of stuff, but given the time period, and I don't know, maybe Italy has looser laws on this. I mean, I know some places have the age of consent being 17, 16, whatever. I know it kind of feels icky, but at the same time, it never goes too far that you feel that bothered. And even then, given the time period, not that makes it acceptable, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, that's not too surprising, So she helps him out. Eventually, she pretends to be his kidnapped hostage, just because as Porco is leaving, it's like, okay, if they find out that this guy and his family helped me fix my plane, they'll throw him in jail. So if I make it seem like I forced them to do it, they can get out of it. So yeah, she goes along for pretty much the final stretch of the movie, which is where we have the American come back, and pretty much there's a whole challenge of okay, if Porco wins the challenge, the American has to pay off his debt, whereas if the American wins, he gets to marry the little girl who helped create his engine. So again, get married with a 17-year-old, but again, I don't know what's their age of consent, and even then, it wasn't too surprising for a time period like that. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole movie. I mean, it's very loose. It's very much a laid back movie, despite a lot of the action that you get out of the planes, which is very neat. It's some of the most neat action sequences from Studio Ghibli, just because it's very unique and it's very different from their usual stuff. But it's fun. I mean, it's honestly a really fun movie. I really enjoy it. It's just so simple, but the characters is what makes it great. Whether it's Porco, the girl who helps him out, her name is Fio, the American, Gina, who is the girl from the bar, or also there's this recurring gang of air pirates called the Mama Yudo gang. They're very fun, especially the captain on that. Especially because with the gang, they're pretty much very even though they're pirates, they're very cruel and whatnot, but they're also very respectful of people. It opens up with them actually doing a kidnapping of all these little grade school girls, and you have the captain basically being okay, we gotta kidnap all the girls, and even his men are are you sure about that? Because that's adding way too much weight to our ship. And he's like, yeah, you don't want to separate these girls from their friends. That's not nice. So it's that's kind of fun. But yeah, it's just a really nice looking movie. It's animated nice. I mean, of course, it's 2D like you would normally expect from Studio Ghibli. It's a really fun movie. I saw the English dub of it, and while I normally prefer watching like the Japanese language ones, the reason why I went with the English dub on this was because, well, look, when it comes to Studio Ghibli films, especially those that were done during like the Disney era of dubbing these things, which granted this came out before, but it was redubbed during the Disney era. Those were usually, had some really good effort put into them. And this one mostly has good effort on it. I mean, they got a good cast. Michael Keaton is the voice of Porco in this. And yeah, for the most part, it does work. Like, they do try to make it work with the lip syncing. Not as well as some of the ones that they did that came out around that exact time. Like Spirited Away, for example. I feel though that one, or like Howl's Moving Castle, did it better when it came to the dubbing, but this one still had a lot of fun with it. Like, you could still see the effort that they went into it. Like, the only times I noticed some issues was that occasionally Michael Keaton would be kind of stiff in the role. Not too much to a point that it ruined it, but to a point where I'm like, okay, I feel like given the expression, he should probably be giving more of an emotion, but then again, maybe that's just how the character is, because a lot of the time the character is kind of like reserved and like not giving as much emotion, so maybe that's what it was. I don't know, but for the most part, a lot of it is good. Like, you have Carrie Always as the American, and he's great and pretty much throughout the entire movie. But yeah, Michael Keaton, Batman himself, Porco Rosso, and I really do love that Porco never really reveals like what exactly cursed him. Again, according to some sources, and it's considered to be like the closest to an official source, it's Porco who cursed himself, but since that's not said in the movie, it's one of those things where it's like, well, look, if they ever make another one of these, which is very possible, because I know that out of all the movies that Miyazaki has done, he's apparently not fully considered it, but at the very least thought about it, from because I know I've read some cases where it was mentioned like, okay, let's see what Porco would be like, years later. I don't know how official that is, but I remember reading it. So, I mean, at least it's something that has been talked about, I would assume, based on that. And I could really see it. I could see them doing another one of these, like maybe as his final film, where it takes place years after the original. Maybe as long as, as far apart as we are now from the original. And who knows, maybe in that version they could actually firmly establish something that wouldn't be just what is assumed to be the source, which is that he cursed himself. But it would honestly make sense, because throughout the entire movie you do see that he's kind of disillusioned with humanity, and even mentions that if pretty much like the main girl, Theo, the engineer girl, if she had if he had met her earlier in his life, he would have basically never turned him never stayed a pig, pretty much, is what he was saying. Because he's pretty much, like, very... Like, he respects her just because of her personality and what she can do. But yeah, it's just a really satisfying movie. And I know I'm repeating myself on that, but that's because it's true. A lot of it is just fun. I like that with them keeping it fairly ambiguous why he turned himself into a pig. You can assume various things, like, okay, well, he mentions that he's kind of a coward, and he mentions that he even ran away from near death, so you can assume maybe it's a curse for running away from that. Of course, it makes it a firm anti-war movie, since, you have Porco who's pretty much like, look, I don't support the government, especially as it starts moving too fast. Like, it's brought up in the movie that eventually the government pretty much, without directly confronting him, pretty much drops them from their payroll, because they're like, because it's mentioned like within the radio that now the more fascist government is pretty much hiring air pirates themselves just to do their own work, which means that the bounty hunter gig is done for, since they're not going to be asking a bounty hunter to take down their pirates. And with that, of course, with the other things like him running away from battle, him basically hating humanity, it's very clear where this movie stands on war and pretty much defending swords. Of course, with it being between like, because it pretty much shows signs that it's just before World War II, after World War One. It's pretty clear, like, okay, yeah, a lot of what's coming in terms of battles is just gonna be bad. I mean, of course, you have the Italian air fleet, which is the one that's going after him for a good chunk of the movie, and even ends off the movie with them chasing after him and the various pirates. You could tell, like, okay, yeah, even that's gone bad in terms of, like, it's changing in terms of power, but also in terms of where their interests lie. And of course, if you know of World War II, you know that Italy was one of the more fascist states. So that, makes it clear where this movie stands. And of course, if you are very annoying about politics, which I to an extent, I get why people wouldn't want politics in their work. If you're listening to this, you didn't see me do the little quotation mark sign, but what I'm basically getting at is, look, realistically, everything has politics. No matter what you think, it has politics. I mean, just look at the meaning of the word. That being said, I get that in some cases, like, okay, you want to escape from the world, and you don't want to think about too much of what's going on. And so in a sense, I can kind of get it from that point of view, in terms of, okay, like, if it's kidding too much in terms of, like, serious stuff that's going on in the world. And I'm not talking about, oh, they added in, people of different, backgrounds or orientation, sexual orientations, any of that stuff. I'm not talking about that stuff. If you're bothered by the addition of that in movies, go fuck yourself. What I'm talking about, like, okay, like, if a movie includes stuff that's going on in the government right then and there, like, let's say if a movie is addressing, like, the current war, or say what the president is currently doing exactly, I guess I could kind of understand that, like, if you don't want to see that, because it's like, okay, we're already seeing that in the real world. So in a way, I could kind of get, like, the issue with doing an anti-war movie, in the sense that, look, war is already kind of shit. I don't want to see it. What I'm getting at is, I guess, that I can kind of get it from that perspective if this movie kind of bugs you. But then again, since it's heavily reliant on past wars, I'm sure most people can get by it. Personally, I think it's good that the movie makes its stance on it, because it helps create the world. It helps you understand why this character is the way he is, why the movie is doing these things, and it just adds a nice element to it that makes it feel kind of fairy tale like, but yet rooted in our world. Pretty much like a whole magical realism kind of thing. I don't know, I probably said that really badly, but what I'm basically getting at is, yeah, I mean, I get, being annoyed of seeing certain political things, especially if it's stuff that's currently going on, that I get it to an extent. Of course, like I said, if it's anything regarding a person's identity or treating people right, fuck you. But if it's just like, like with the war, or whether or not the president is doing something stupid, or something that is very direct, like one-to-one to the real world, I could kind of understand why that would be annoying. I don't really get bothered by that too much unless it's done badly, but whatever, everyone has their things. I don't think this one should bother anyone, but who knows, maybe some people who have been to war, who might be more supportive of it, would be annoyed. I don't know if I could really back them up on that, but okay. Or maybe even if they hate the war, they just don't want to think about anything war related, even if it's something from the past, which, I mean, I guess I can kind of get, I don't know. It's just something that came to mind because I see a lot of people get really weird about this stuff, and I want to be respectful, and to an extent, I can kind of understand where some people might be coming from on this, but I don't know. It's just, I don't give a shit. Honestly, watch something with politics, it's alright. If it's too direct to something that would be bothering you, that is, like I said, not hurting anyone else, I mean, I guess, whatever, be annoyed by it, but I don't know, that's a big chunk of time of me talking about something and not coming with a clear stance on it, but, well, I think I have a clear stance, I don't know, man, I really don't know. Anyways, I should have not gone too deep on that, but it happens. Sometimes that's where the conversation carries you. But yeah, it's an anti-war movie. I like how a lot of the characters are pretty much like, no one's really a full-on villain in this. Like, whether you get into like the American, the pirates, the closest thing you have to a villain, and of course this goes back to the whole anti-war thing, is really the governments themselves, in terms of like, okay, well, they put Porco out of his job, which they never really end off with a solution to that, because, hey, it took years for us to solve it in our world too. But they also have, of course, the police chasing after him, and I don't think it's ever made fully clear why. You can kind of just assume that it's because of something he did, like whether it was in the battlefield or just doing one of his bounty hunting stuff. So it's not something that really matters, honestly, because you already know he's a bounty hunter. He used to be in the war, so you kind of assume it's one of those things that he did that screwed over, but never really matters, and that's perfectly fine. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very well done movie, and I know I've been a broken record about that, but it's because it's very well written, very well animated. The characters are a lot of fun. Porco himself is great. He keeps us and the characters at bay just enough. Like, he'll let you in a little bit, but we never learn too much to a point that, we fully understand him, but we don't care. Theo is a great character. We just love how she works so damn hard just to get some appreciation, and most people do care for her in this movie. The American, I believe his name was Curtis, and I've been calling him the American, but realistically most people just call him the American. He's just a very fun character. Like, even when he essentially becomes like the main antagonist, you still kind of like him because you can kind of see where he's coming from, even though, yeah, he's a sexist pig just as much as the pig is. But, it's all in good nature. And, yeah, I think I'm going to have to cut it off there just because I don't know how much more I can say without repeating myself. But Porco Rosso, really good anti-war movie, really fun Miyazaki movie, just a really solid time. It never overstays its welcome. It never feels self-indulgent. It fully understands what it is, even though, yeah, it just feels as important and big as a lot of the other Miyazaki Studio Ghibli projects, but it never goes full on to a point where it starts feeling too long or annoying or problematic or anything. I mean, not that a lot of those really feel that way, but like I said earlier, I've never been too big on them. I mean, I can get to their appeal to an extent. I will admit that at times I've been kind of negative and I would say kind of mean-spirited in terms of how I feel about those, in terms of, like, I would say in the past that some people who give it that high praise are probably the same people who were kind of outcasts themselves, which, it's kind of messed up because, everyone can be an outcast. But in terms of how, we just want to like this just because it makes us feel different, which, I mean, even if that's true, that's still kind of messed up to say, because that's just generalizing a bunch of people. So I don't feel that's accurate to say or fair to say anymore. I do think that there is some truth to it in terms of some of the people I've personally met. Again, I've personally met, not people that I don't know, so I don't want to stick words into their thing. And not that I even want to stick words into the mouths of people I have met anyways, but some of them do come off as like, okay, we only like it because it's foreign, which, you know, it's a sentiment that's been heard, not so much just for Japan, but even like with foreign films in general, like French movies, Italian movies, you know, any of that, that there is some love from people who just want to love something that's different, which, you know, it's fine if that's the case. And there's nothing really wrong with it. But I kind of get it in a sense that may be where some people just really love the Miyazaki movies. I still don't really find them that appealing. Not that like I said, broken record on that too. Not that I don't find these movies to be good, but a lot of them I just don't think are the best out there. Some of them are really solid stuff, and I would highly recommend for anyone. But, you know, just like Disney, just like Pixar, just like, you know, any other big company, I want to say stuff like Laika or Cartoon Saloon, but they haven't had enough features to fully showcase like their mediocre or less great features the same way that Disney and Pixar and Studio Ghibli have. But those would definitely be the ones that I'm like, yeah, look, when you have, you know, a company that has had that many features, of course you're bound to have your greats, you're bound to have your less greats. It's how it is. I mean, I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. But with that being said, you know, like I said, Porco Rosso, definitely go watch it if you've never seen it, and if you have seen it, go watch it again. It's just a really solid time. And with that, I say thank you for listening. This has been Octaviano Macias, host of I Can't Believe It's Not the Mouse. If you enjoyed this, please support me on Patreon. Supporting me on Patreon gets your name on the video versions of this, which are shown on Psycam Films on YouTube. So subscribe to me there. I am thinking of new ways to, you know, show my appreciation if you donate. So consider doing that once I have enough people. Let's say at least 10 people donating to my Patreon. I will consider doing polls for anyone who has donated to do special episodes, like let's say once every other month I'll do an episode that viewers request or viewers vote on. I'll work on that, but I am working on more things that we can do, behind the scenes stuff over time, merchandise over time. But yeah, so yeah, you can do that by supporting me on Patreon, and that of course will help me work on these videos. It'll help give me more time to work on these videos if enough is given to the point that I can make this more of a priority, as a way of being able to step away from my day job to work on this a little bit more. So support me on Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/psycams. That's SAICAMS. www.patreon.com/psycams. Support me there. And yeah, again, thank you for listening. I hope you join me for the next video, which is going to be our Christmas episode. So yeah, look forward to that. Thank you for listening.
I'll tell everyone you're chicken!
Chicken, pig, what's the difference?
Hey, just wanted to say thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe. Comment below if you had any thoughts on this. And if you want to support me even more, there's always the option of Patreon. Yes, I have a Patreon. Patreon would be a great way to help me grow this channel, as it's a great way to get equipment, a great way to let me know what you guys like, and it's a great way to help me financially. Just saying, the more I have on Patreon, the more time I'll have for these videos. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.